Happy Saturday. It's July 19th, 2025, and you are listening to Morning Meeting. I'm Ashley Baker in New York City.
And I'm Michael Haney, also in New York City.
Michael, it feels good to be back together, doesn't it?
It was nice to see you at lunch the other day.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to bring some of our convivial lunch vibes to this week's episode, but first, the news. The Senate has approved Trump's bid to cancel $9 billion in congressionally approved spending that had been directed towards foreign aid as well as public broadcasting. It was a 51-48 vote that reflected the opposition of the Republican senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Meanwhile, in the UK, the government has announced that it is lowering the voting age to 18, joining nations like Austria, Malta, and Brazil, and hopefully energizing the country's youth in the process. As always, Airmail is the antidote to all the news of the day, and here on Morning Meeting, we have a great episode to transport you.
We sure do. First, everyone loves a true story about someone triumphing over adversity and financial ruin and maybe fatal illness, which is why so many readers fell in love with The Salt Path, a memoir by Raynor Winn that became a monster bestseller. It's also become a huge scandal in the past week, and as Stu Heritage will report from the UK, it seems Winn's story doesn't quite add up. Is it shades of James Fry and A Million Little Pieces? We'll find out. Then, speaking of people who may or may not have shaded the truths they tell about themselves, no one might have been better at that than former President John F. Kennedy. There's a new book out about him called J.F.K, Public-Private Secret, and the author, J. Randy Taraborelli, will join us to share his insights. And finally, one of our favorite guests, Linda Wells, Airmail's beauty and wellness editor, will be here to tell us what's in the new issue of Airmail Look and share also her advice on looking great this summer. So Ashley, where would you like to begin today?
Well, Michael, let's start with Stu Heritage because, just when you think you can enjoy something in life, for me, that would be the film version of The Salt Path, which I saw over the recent holiday break. It turns out that it too is all a fraud. Stu will tell us why. Stu is a writer at large at Airmail based in Kent in the UK. Welcome, Stu.
Hello.
So, Stu, your story really bummed me out this week because I saw The Salt Path over the holiday break and I really enjoyed it. It made me actually want to read the memoir. And then according to, this big report, bombshell in The Observer this week, all is basically a fraud. Take us through it.
Yeah. It's a huge memoir, The Salt Path. It's written by a woman called Raynor Winn, published in 2018. And it's hard to overestimate just how big it was. It sold 2 million copies, which, in a small country like this is an awful lot. And it's sort of responsible for this huge wave of imitators over the years of down on their luck people fixing everything by going on very long walks. The Salt Path in particular came about, apparently, because Raynor Winn and her husband Moth made a bad investment, lost their house. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness. So they set off on a 600-mile walk around the southwest coast of England, during which they came upon kind of a spiritual awakening. Moth's symptoms magically got better. And then, all the money came rolling in from the book.
You're giving me James Fry
Great,
vibes.
Michael is pulling faces at me. I can't.
We're having flashbacks to 2006 and an episode of Oprah.
It's amazing.
It's exactly the same. Everything, according to The Observer, which seems like a very, very thoroughly researched investigation, although Raynor Winn has disputed a lot of it. Well, her name isn't Raynor Winn, for one. It's Sally Walker. And she didn't lose her house in a bad investment. She lost her house trying to pay back £64,000 that she embezzled from her employer. Technically, in the book, they say how homeless they are. The Observer investigation found that they had a property in France at the same time. So I don't know if it's an uninhabitable plot, but still they went camping on it before. So they're not necessarily as homeless as they said they were. And the most serious allegation perhaps is of Moth's illness. He was terminally ill. Doctors give, it's a neurodegenerative illness called CBD. Doctors who look at that sort of case typically give someone 6 to 8 years. And going on the chronology of the Salt Path, he's had it for 18 years. And 2 years ago, he walked the London Marathon. So there's a lot to dispute. And it's starting to look like, if it's all true, just a colossal grift.
As you said, I love you in your column this week. You say, you basically have to admire the sheer brass balls of a woman for pulling this off for so long, right?
Well, yeah, because it's shameless. She's written since the Salt Path, she's written 2 more books, both of which follow a sort of a weird formula where her husband's symptoms get very bad, they go on a long walk and then they get better. And that kind of repeats itself. And she just keeps putting herself out there. She was a producer on the movie that you saw, Ashley, and she walked the red carpet. She did lots of promotion, retelling her story over and over again. And to do it, if the allegations are true, to do it with that sort of absolute lack of shamelessness, in a way, is impressive.
Well, also, she was immortalized by Gillian Anderson, who played her in the film.
Yeah, I know. And one of the things I'm really enjoying about the fallout of this is that the producers of the film immediately kind of went on the defensive and they said, this is an adaptation of the book. We don't know anything outside of the book. That's the text that we stole from. Penguin, which published it in the UK, it said it did all the due diligence and nothing came up. So yeah, everyone's on full damage limitation, it seems like.
I mean, Stu, does this mean we're not supposed to enjoy the book and the film anymore? I mean, what's the fallout from this? She's already made an absolute fortune, right? Apparently her husband is sort of cured-ish, or never was really that bad in the first place. I mean, who are the winners and losers here?
Well, her reputation's taken a big knock. And I feel like the way, from a sort of a public relations perspective, the way out of it would be a huge donation to a sort of a neurodegenerative illness charity. That said, both versions of her book, the regular paperback and the movie tie-in paperback, just instant bestsellers again because everyone's curious. So she's still making a lot of money. And I feel like if she writes a book about this, that's going to be so much more interesting than just a long description of a walk. Was the film good? I haven't seen it.
I mean, I really liked it, but I saw it in the theater when I was on holidays. So automatically it's 30% better than it probably is just because of that.
Yeah, that's solid. That's solid maths. That works out.
I think the Rotten Tomatoes score was good. Don't trust me. Trust the algorithm.
I think it is supposed to be good. I haven't watched it because it doesn't necessarily appeal to me. But it's doing all right. And I think they're good depictions of the characters presented within the book, even if that depiction is all based on untruths.
Also, it's a love letter to the southwest coast of England, which is one of our favorite spots.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the appeal of the Salt Path initially. It's getting out into nature, and it's a beautiful part of the country.
I think the next book, I mean, I like what you're saying, Stu. She'll probably write another book. She'll probably go on a walk beforehand. I would title the walk and the book The Walk of Shame. And she could then, sort of like wear her hair shirt on that walk and then, I'm lo and behold, I make amends and because everyone's going to read a redemption story, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's going to be it. And she could have people like clanging bells following her, all people in Cornwall. Yeah, something's got to happen. Although she's denied it so firmly. In the week, there was a 2,500 word point-by-point denial of almost everything. She brushed over a lot of it. The embezzlement, she said, well, it was 2008. We're all under a lot of pressure. What can you do? But in regards to Mott's illness, she said it is CBD, but it's an atypical form of CBD, which wasn't really covered in the book. And, there's stuff about she couldn't live in France because that house is a ruin in a bramble patch or something, she said. But then the really amazing thing, the Observer the following Sunday offered its own point-by-point rebuttal of her denial. So I think this is going to go backwards and forwards for weeks and weeks.
A reason to live, Stu.
God knows we need one.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Michael, have you seen this movie yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, I was going to say, it's really great. Don't miss it. But now I'm sort of rethinking. You might want to save your $20.
You don't have to realize it's maybe fiction, but to enjoy it. But who knows? Gillian Anderson, why not?
Yeah, fair enough. It's still a solid movie. Speaking of things that are absolutely true and that you can always believe, Linda Wells is here to dismantle the hype and deliver the truth on all things beauty and wellness. She is the editor of Airmail Look, and prior to that, she was the founding editor-in-chief of Allure magazine, a role she held for 25 years. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, Ashley, Michael. How are you?
I was doing much better before I realized that I need to have regular blood tests. Your look from here in this month's issue of Airmail Look is all about all of these startups. What's going on with this?
Right. Well, blood testing is now the thing. It's figuring out your biomarkers and getting on top of it so that you can at least give yourself the impression of total control over your life and your longevity. So there's a new-ish app called Function Health from Dr. Mark Hyman, who's the really popular functional medicine doctor. And you go and you get your blood tested. I had to give 20 vials to do it. And that is a lot of blood. You can't do it all in one sitting because it's so much. So I did it in 2, and then they send it away and have it analyzed. And then it comes into you in this platform. And, you can go on the website or you can go on an app, but it's a very detailed analysis. And then it gives you actionable behavior. So I discovered first, my biological health is 10 years younger than my chronological health. So I felt so amazing. And I was gloating my head off until Dr. Mark Hyman told me that his was 15 years younger. So thank you very much. It figures that out based on your, behavior and your blood tests. And then it gives you advice. And my advice was, the advice I got was eat more cranberries and more mung beans. Like, that's bizarrely specific. So I still haven't really upped my intake of mung beans because I'm not really even sure how you get them, but I'm doing a bang up job on cranberries. And then he also advised me to go gluten-free, and I have, and it is incredibly boring, just so boring.
Do you feel better?
I feel no different when I do any of these things. So, but the interesting thing about the blood test is that this is now entering the spa world. So we're seeing it at Shaw spas in Spain and Mexico. The Rocco Forte hotels have a new longevity center, and they're doing blood tests. Sixth Senses has it. I mean, we know all those Swiss clinics that have had it for ages. It becomes as part of kind of self-care, which is bizarre. And then there's this gallery test. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but it's getting a lot of attention because it detects 50 different types of cancer and claims to do so in the early stages so that you get early detection equals early survival. Really, it improves your chance of survival. But it turns out it's not quite as airtight as we were all led to believe. So this is a whole new world of, medical testing. Whoever cared about blood tests? I don't know about you, but I'd get my blood test at the doctor and never look at the results.
I always obsess over the results, but this is where we're different, and that's beautiful. But
Right.
No, I mean, I think for some people it's useful. For other people, it just contributes to the paranoia. And that would be my situation. So I will not be joining you on this journey, Linda, but thank you for sharing yours with us.
Yes. Thanks.
You also have a great story in the issue about James Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy who became a beauty entrepreneur.
I know. Who would have guessed that James Dyson would be the beauty guy when he was just doing vacuum cleaners and fans and air purifiers? But I met him when he introduced the first hair dryer, the blow dryer called the Supersonic. And he turned something that was just a boring tool that you had to use because you had to dry your hair into something that was sexy and expensive and desirable. And it became kind of a status object. And then he went from there into the Air Wrap. And that's a styling device. It was really expensive. Great hotels have it. Pasalacqua has one. And in the process, people have become really interested in hair devices. And he raised the prices of these things by $100. He became a billionaire many, many times over because of these devices. And people have knocked them off. Like Shark is doing a bang-up business and dupes of his devices. And now he's going to be moving into other products for beauty, not just hair. So who knows what they're going to be? He didn't say, but it might be red light masks. We've got red light caps. We've got dermaplane machines and face massagers and hair removers. There's a whole world out there of devices that are getting a lot of attention and getting people excited.
Michael, I know you have a question from the man in the room. We got to hear it.
No. I was fascinated by the blood thing test, and I agree. That whole panel thing. I've asked my doctor about it once, and he said, "Here's the thing with not the blood test, but the other one, the screening thing where you go in that gigantic machine." And he's like, "Here's the thing." He's like, "You are going to find out you have something, but is that something going to be the thing that is fatal to you?" And he says, "How much do you really want to know at this point?" Like, it could say, "Oh, you've got X." But in fact, you could live with X for 30 years and you would never know you have it. But you would then start to have to manage your life around this thing. So he said that's a trade-off with it.
And there are arguments that say it can increase anxiety. And then there are other arguments where if you've had cancer and you take the Gallery test and it comes back clean, which happened to someone who's very close to me, it was a great anxiety reliever. So it is kind of a tricky little tightrope to walk there.
Michael, I thought you were going to ask about teeth whitening.
No, but go for it.
Your teeth look great, for the record. No, we have a very fun story in the issue about a guy who, male vanity is one of our favorite topics. And so, Linda, we tackled that one, don't we?
We do. And it's very funny. It's by Devin Friedman. He decides he needs to get his teeth whitened because he got a picture taken, and there he was standing there looking like he had a mouthful of acorns or something. I mean, he looked like he was, someone who was found on the side of the road. And so he lives in LA, where teeth whitening is sort of a requirement. So he went to see a dentist and kind of had to figure out whether it would make him into a schmuck or a Hollywood agent or a Don Jr. adjacent person. And he went ahead and got it, and his kids didn't even notice the difference. But his teeth were whiter, and he wasn't a schmuck.
Like when you just see like tobacco, coffee stained teeth before whitening existed, it just is like, it's from another era, right?
Yeah. It's funny. It's changed our eye. It now is really kind of has become a requirement. And there are whitening places, little boutiques and little, shops that you can just stop in on the corner the way you would get a coffee. And maybe that's a good idea. Get a coffee, get your teeth whitened.
Honestly, Linda, after reading Devin's story and then looking at my own coffee and tea stained teeth in the mirror, like I was tempted yesterday. I saw one on Bleecker Street. It said, we'll have you in and out in an hour. And I almost did it.
Your teeth look good.
No, trust me. They don't look too closely. Wear sunglasses. Okay. So Linda, we have a bit of scandal in the beauty world in East Hampton of all places. What's happening at the med spa there? Sorry, Michael. I know we've shocked you.
I know. There is a med spa right next to Soul Cycle and Carissa Bakery and behind all the nice stores. And according to all our research, the person who's doing all the injections there and the lasers does not have a license to do this. We found no license in any registration anywhere. So she denies this, but there she is, and she has a refrigerator that someone sent a photograph of, and inside it are all the boxes of the injectables next to a jar of mayonnaise and an old banana. And that's just not what you want from your injectables. And so it really raised the conversation about who we trust to do these treatments. And the fact that they've become so acceptable that people really like Botox is not a scandalous thing to do anymore. People really accept it. People even accept injections to a degree. People aren't as shy about doing it, but as a result, they've become so common that we don't really know the qualifications of the people who are doing the injections. And things can go terribly wrong. Not just like you have a frozen forehead, but that in the injectables, those can, strike a vein and get into your system and really cause terrible side effects, real dangers, great disfigurement. And there have been cases around the country. So med spas are much more popular than they've ever been. It's now a $17 billion business, and there are about 10,000 med spas around the country. And along with their rise are complaints and side effects and people who are not licensed to do the work. And it's hard to know because you look at those certifications on the wall and you don't know if they're real. And you don't know what's in your syringe, if it's counterfeit products or diluted products. And there's a whole business in counterfeit Botox from China. So it's a scary situation.
All right. Linda, thank you so much. As always, we will see you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, what are you doing this summer to optimize your beauty and wellness?
Sunscreen, that's all I do.
I love it.
And a lot of retinol.
Really?
Yeah.
I should have pegged you for a retinol guy. What brand are you using?
I don't know, whatever Brooke gives me, but it's, just rub it on every night before I go to sleep. It's good for the skin, right?
God, I need to be using more of it. You're inspiring me.
Wow, look at that. I made a difference. Who knew I could inspire the Air Male Look editor?
Michael, look, we all just want to look as good as you. I mean, you got that gorgeous skin. What can I say?
Pish posh, pish posh.
Anyway, moving on. Okay, we have, because it is the summer, would it even be airmail if we did not have a JFK story? I think not. Just when we thought we knew everything there was to know about JFK, J. Randy Taraborelli is here to tell us, in fact, we were wrong. He has previously written a book about Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and now his latest is JFK, Public-Private Secret. I mean, what's not to love about that? Welcome, Randy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so listen, you've got a great book out about John F. Kennedy and a guy who used his charm to kind of sell anything, including most of all probably himself. But you've got some pretty fascinating revelations and also insights into, how he came to have this charm in his life, and maybe sort of towards the end of his life, he was strangely kind of realizing it was a false construct. Can you tell us kind of like how you saw him growing up and what he had this charm that attracted people and how that was wired into him?
Well, JFK started out, in a privileged lifestyle, entitled, a little bit selfish, I think it's fair to say, charming, but there was kind of no core there. It was all superficial charm, but it worked very well politically. And you see in my book, this man grow from sort of this poster boy for politics into an actual public servant, accountable not only to his country, but then as a man accountable to his wife. So the book is really JFK's journey from being this guy who really had no empathy and no sympathy for others, grow into a man who was there for his family, for his wife and his country. And it's not an easy journey. There are many times along the way in this book where you just want to shake this guy because he was so unconscionable, especially in his marriage to Jackie. But if you stick with the book long enough, just as if you stuck with JFK long enough in real life, you got to see the unfolding of a great American hero, I think. And that's what the book is about.
Well, so let's talk about his wife, Jackie, as you kind of detail in the book, in his younger years, he was a young man, but like early on, he sort of, comes up with these justifications for his bad behavior in his marriage, why he cheats on Jackie. He kind of seems to, as you note, blame it on his father, Joe, and how Joe cheated on his wife, John's mother, and he kind of creates this whole, they're not just excuses, this whole belief system, as you say, that's sort of designed to protect him from his own guilt, right?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up because I haven't talked about this at all on my book tour. And I think it's really interesting that this is what we do, isn't it? We come up with the reasons for our bad behavior. And very often we're blaming others. And JFK did this. I cheat on my wife because my father cheated on my mother. I cheat on my wife because my wife allows me to cheat on her. My wife well knows I'm cheating on her and she still lets me do it. So this is really not my fault. It's her fault. It's really not, my fault. It's my dad's fault. It was always somebody else. And as he grew older and became more evolved as a man, he realized by 1963 that no, it's not my dad and it's not my wife and it's not my family. It's me. And he told his sister-in-law, Joan Kennedy, in 1963 that the way he treated Jackie was painful, he said. And by painful, I mean shameful. So he was becoming accountable to his wife for his previous actions, and he was taking accountability. And that's what the book is about. The book really is about forgiveness and accountability because at the same time, Jackie and her mom were planning to have, they were planning a renewal of JFK and Jackie's wedding vows in 1964 had he lived. That's how close they had become as a couple. And Janet, the mom, said to Jackie, after all you've been through, you still love him. And Jackie said, I do. And she added these words that really stuck with me. She said, because it's we who made him. In other words, she's also taking accountability for her part in their bad marriage. And she's not blaming him and he's not blaming her. And that's the only real road, right, to reconciliation and forgiveness in a marriage is if you stop blaming each other for the past. And when Jackie said, it's we who made him, my interpretation of that is that we allowed him to run wild until he finally got it out of his system and we forgave him for it. So it's an interesting story to me. Accountability and forgiveness it's I think a really hopeful story to tell, especially right now in this sort of fractured time. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to tell it.
Well, you have a quote from him sort of in that last year of his life where you see that the shackles have really kind of fallen from his eyes. And he says, every bad decision I've ever made has been my own fault. He's finally owning, he can't blame his father or his circumstances or anything or, his wife. Do you think it seems as in some ways the tragedy of his death, there's many tragedies inside Kennedy's death, but that he was it seems you're saying a guy who was almost on the verge of becoming whole, and it was cut down before he just was about to step into a new level of maturity, right?
That is one of the great tragedies, and as I wrote in the book, if the book feels unfinished, it's because the life is unfinished. I was sad when I finished writing this book because I could see where he was going. He had already gotten there. It could only have gotten better from that point. He probably would have had a second term. I think he and Jackie would have stayed together. It was a hard-earned victory. As you read in the book, look, this is 580 pages, so this wasn't an easy story to tell or a quick story to tell. But it all happened in a 10-year period. This coming into his own happened between 1953 and 1963. So a lot of life was packed into that 10 years. As I said, it was hard earned. And it's so sad that he and his family didn't get to reap the benefit of the work that he and Jackie and the family put into making him the man that they always knew he could be.
Yeah, and you see, you just wonder about, as he'd gone through early struggles in his presidency, Bay of Pigs and other things, and maybe that was also kind of making him realize, like, you can't blame yourself. You've got to take responsibilities, and not just in your personal world, but in your job. That there's no one to blame but yourself, really.
That's what we want on our leaders: accountability. But I think that you can't be a great leader until you work on becoming a better man, and And we saw during the Bay of Pigs, which was the Cuban invasion in 1962 that went very badly and resulted in a lot of death. It was an invasion that J.F.K. inherited from the Eisenhower administration. But rather than blame the other guy, Eisenhower, and blame the CIA and blame everybody else who was involved in the Bay of Pigs tragedy, J.F.K. went on the world stage and gave a press conference in which he said that he was to blame. He took accountability for the Bay of Pigs, and his approval rating shot up to 85%. So Americans want that kind of accountability in their leaders, and we want that kind of accountability in our spouses too, right? And in our family members and the people in our lives. So this story is really about that sort of split persona, leadership and humanity. And you definitely see both the man and the leader growing during the course of the story.
In an era where there's a lot of finger pointing and a lot of refusing to take the blame by leaders, your book does let it sort of leave you, wondering what might have been. And just tremendous amount of reporting, as you said. And were you reading a lot of letters and diaries to get a lot of this information, or what was your research on this?
Oh, the research for this was incredible. And it was so great and it's so rewarding. I had unpublished manuscripts that I was able to refer to that really were invaluable. I had Joe Kennedy, the father's unpublished manuscript, which really set me in the right direction where he was concerned. And I had the unpublished manuscript of Joan Lundberg, who was a woman who had a 3-year, very important relationship with J.F.K., which had never been reported prior to this book. And, the diaries and the oral histories, hundreds of oral histories from the J.F.K. library, interviews that had not been published before, but given by the mom, Jackie's mom, Janet Auchincloss. There's a lot that went into this book. Not to mention my own research. We interviewed, people who were 90 years old, 100 years old. Some of the sources in the book were over 100 years old, which is an amazing thing to have as source material.
Well, it's an amazing book. If you love history, if you love biography, if you love both of them brought together, and even in some ways it's a bit of a memoir. It's called J.F.K, Public, Private, Secret. It's by J. Randy Taraborelli, and it's in bookstores now, right?
It's in bookstores now. It just came out. Yeah, so I hope people buy it and take this journey. I think it's a good one, and it's well worth it.
Well, thanks for being here today, Randy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
There's only one place to discover a global snapshot of the current cultural scene. Airmail's Arts Intel Report, our international research tool for what to do and where and when to do it, is user-friendly, continuously updated, and meticulously curated. Arts Intel is handy at home, on the road, and when you're planning your next trip. It also includes indispensable lists of restaurants and hotels in key cities around the world, recommended by our well-traveled experts. Explore Arts Intel at airmail.news/arts-intel, and be sure to sign up for our Week in Culture newsletter, which is published every Wednesday afternoon at airmail.news/WIC. I'm Chris Garrett, an Airmail Deputy Editor, and I never leave home without it. Bon voyage.
Okay, Michael, one for the reading list.
Summertime. Good. You need those good page turners on the beach, right?
Always. Well, on that note, let's get to the beach and get to the sand. I know you've got something you can recommend to us for the weekend.
I do. It's a good, really, I've only seen the first episode. It's a 2-part documentary. It's called Billy Joel and So It Goes. And this is streaming on HBO. And, it's funny. Billy Joel just sort of like did his last performance this year at Madison Square Garden. It was a big deal, the artist in residence there. And, this is a pretty great documentary. I'm a Billy Joel fan from way back. And this is made by a couple people from who did PBS American Masters series. It's got Tom Hanks as a producer and Sean Hayes as well. And I think it's a pretty great summertime documentary. Makes you feel great about the music, but also like you get insights into a guy who's pretty complicated artist and made some headlines for reasons of it that he didn't want and as well as that he did. But I really am looking forward to watching the second part. It's, as I said, streaming on HBO right now. It's called Billy Joel and So It Goes. And you, my dear?
Have you seen Lena Dunham's new show, Too Much, on Netflix?
No, you were telling me all about it at lunch the other day, so tell us all what we need to know.
Well, clearly you're not listening to my IRL recommendations.
I am. It just got a little busy. Come on.
I know it's been 24 hours, but still. No, I love this show so much, and I wrote about it in the issue this week. If there can be a problem with Lena Dunham, it is that she is Lena Dunham, and we know so much about her because she is so open about who she is. It's very difficult, I think, to separate the show from the showrunner. And she's so closely associated with girls because it was mirrored so closely on her life that, a lot of people found that annoying or found it a problem in some capacity. But here we are after a 15-year career that I think would have most Hollywood lifers fairly envious, and she's back with another great show. And I think we just have to hat tip Lena for being Lena Dunham and putting it all out there in the way that she does. I mean, she's an incredible writer. Her eye for detail is remarkable. And she captures London in a way that I think few, even English television showrunners have. And I have tremendous respect for the way that she's done it. I think it takes a really great character to write a great character. And Lena Dunham's great talent is that she can write 12 of them and put them all in a single show. And she's done that here. And so, yes, are there some elements of the show that one might find annoying or pretentious or whatever? Yeah, people will have their quibbles. But at the end of the day, I do think she is what they call a generational talent. And the fact that we can't stop watching her shows and talking about her is just evidence to that. So anyway, I highly recommend it. It's called Too Much. It's on Netflix. And I have painted my fingernails blue in solidarity, Michael. So there you have it.
Wonderful.
Well, on that note, we thank you all so much for joining us and wish you a wonderful weekend. Michael, will you please read us out?
Morning Meeting is produced by Airplay Productions and edited by Jesse Cannon. Our co-editors are Graydon Carter and Alexander Stanley. Our chief operating officer is Bill Keenan. And our deputy editors are Ashley Baker, Chris Garrett, Nathan King, Julie Vitale, and Ash Carter. Our CMO is Emily Davis, and our music supervisor is Randall Poster. The theme music is The Cute Monster by the Buddy Collette Quintet. A new edition of Airmail is published every Saturday, so please subscribe and enjoy all of our stories at airmail.news, which we update every day. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Airmail Weekly. We will be back here next Saturday with another edition of Morning Meeting, but in the meantime, be sure to subscribe at Spotify or Apple Music. But most of all, thanks again for joining us.